Brandon, again, I know people say that he's in the only really Cup affiliated car in the ARCA Menards Series. He has an unfair equipment advantage, but he's still going out and doing everything that he needs to do. His second year in a row now, he's the ARCA East champion and could very well, like Connor Mosack, be in a Gibbs car full time in Xfinity next year. When he turns 18 next month, he'll be eligible for that. So, what's your reaction to him winning the ARCA East title once again?
It's one of the two names we thought was going to be there, either Sawalich or Zilich. So really no surprise, Ben, at all. And you said it; they're the two that we think are going to take that ABC path, but maybe skip a few and go straight to the B for the Xfinity Series. And certainly Zilich is already on that radar. We talked about him as being the next Jeff Gordon, not a next Jeff Gordon, but the next Jeff Gordon last Monday, a big talking point. But you could certainly put Sawalich somewhere in those ranks, wherever you'd prefer, in your opinion, right now. But yeah, being the only the only Cup affiliated car in the ARCA Menards series and ARCA Menards East, um, he's got a little bit of an advantage there, to say the least. But he's definitely one of the top talents there, and showed it. And it really could have gone either way there with Sawalich or Zilich. But Sawalich, no surprise to do that, and no surprise to be moving up as quickly as he's going to within just the next year or 2 years.
Yeah, certainly successful season for him, and again defending his championship from last year and scoring yet another win. Ultimately, I think what we're going to see from him next year in Xfinity is ultimately the next step for him to take. And as we saw with Connor Mosack winning on debut at Watkins Glen, wouldn't put similar performances like that past William Sawalich either, with the talent that he's shown in the ARCA Menards series. And really, when you think about it, his predecessor in that ARCA 18 car, Ty Gibbs, what did he do in his Xfinity Series debut? Was the last driver before Connor Mosack to win in his first Xfinity race. So a lot of talent over the Toyota pipeline in that organization, particularly with that car in the ARCA Menards series. So congratulations again to William Sawalich. But again, at the same time, we have to talk about Connor Mosack here and break down what led up to this. And again, I mentioned talking about this on Women in Motorsports this week. Unfortunately, it does involve two of the women that were competing in this race, Amber Balcaen and Logan Misuraca. The two of them had made contact earlier in the race. That sent Logan Misuraca around. And even a third female driver, Tony Breidinger, teammate to Amber Balcaen, kind of got caught up in that stack up there. We'll pull the first page of the results up here for you. Tony was able to still soldier on and only lost one lap throughout the race, so she came home with a solid 12th place finish. Balcaen and Misuraca, though, unfortunately not as lucky. They came together a second time, and this was ultimately the incident that Zilich got caught up in. Now, it was kind of hard to tell from the angles and replays that we were given. I thought, looking at it in real time, that whether it was intentional or not, whether there was any malicious intent behind it or not, that Balcaen had kind of come down and doored Misuraca on the inside. That sent the number 9 car around, and Misuraca ended up spinning out. And again, looked like she might have been able to continue, but 30 plus degrees of banking in the corners at Bristol, her car started to slide down the track, unfortunately, right into the path of Connor Mosack. And again, it could have just as easily been anybody else. It's unfortunate that it was the championship leader and one of the two championship protagonists coming into the race. But Brandon, I know you said you got to look at the incident again shortly before we came onto the show. Was there anything that stood out to you as to what went down to ultimately end Connor Mosach's chances of winning this ARCA East title?
Yeah, it really just comes down, I think, to just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And with a track like Bristol, there's not much area for you to be in the right place. Really, they're always coming around, always tons of lap down cars in the mix, and so just being there in the wrong spot there for both Misuraca and Balcaen, and then Zilich just happened to be the one there. So really can't put this on them for taking out a championship contender. But yeah, at the same time, it really is up to you whether there was some intention involved as far as the incident itself.
Yeah, and again, this is why I said it's probably good we didn't do a show, because again, it would have been a tight window. We would have had to react to it before hearing everybody's side of the story and all the interviews came out. And I have to say, I really like Matt Weaver. really respect Matt Weaver. He's been doing this a lot longer than I have. He knows more about the sport than he's forgotten more about the sport, I should say, than I'm ever going to know. Um, and if he has evidence that led him to tweet this, I would love to see it. Would love to be proven wrong, but um, I have to say I was not a fan of what he tweeted out at 5:45 p.m. the night of the race here, because was quoting his own tweet and saying ARCA East championship leader Connor Mosack had nowhere to go when Logan Misuraca spun in front of him. All Mosack needed to do was finish 12th. Now William Sawalich is poised to capitalize. He quoted that tweet and said, even worse, that appears to have happened because Misuraca went to take a swipe at Amber Balcaen in retaliation for their earlier incident. Now, again, if Matt had access to SMT data that I haven't seen yet, I would be happy to be proven wrong here. But looking at it in real time, and again, the FS1 onboard camera was not great because it wasn't showing what Misuraca was doing with the steering wheel in the cockpit. It was panned to the right side of the car, focusing on Balcaen. It's, again, seemed to me, at best, it was a racing incident. At worst, it seemed to me like Balcaen, again, regardless of intent, came down a lane a little bit into Misuraca's car, and that ultimately is what got her out of shape and led to her losing control and spinning out. Misuraca's side of the story, she posted this on Instagram, I believe, the day after the race on Friday. And again, if you're not familiar with Logan's story, she has fought and clawed her way back to getting this opportunity to compete in this race this year. We really haven't seen her in ARCA since last season. So she has been, as she says in her poster, after 14 long months on the hunt for sponsorship, preparing for this one ARCA race on my 2024 schedule. It is very unfortunate that this race went as it did. She continues on here and says, but this opportunity led me to such an incredible team that I am so grateful to call family. Our car was so fast, we qualified 13th out of 33 with more to give, and we're looking great going into the race. And then she goes on and says, after preparing and putting in so much effort for this race, for a driver to race you so ridiculously dirty is a shame. As a female in motorsports, we all aim for the men to respect us as drivers, but for the females not to respect each other is truly saddening. Due to events taking place last night, females in motorsports have taken a huge step backwards in this sport. We need to be growing the table, not fighting over a seat. 1 time is forgiven, that's just racing. 2 times is a target. That's, I think, a clear reference to the second incident that took her out. As a sponsor-funded driver coming from short track and the dirt racing world, I know that retaliation is never the answer, and I stand true to that. I did not and will never retaliate under a green flag condition. And she goes on to say, I will be back and eager. No, this is not a rivalry. My race is elsewhere, but it is motivation. Thank you to my amazing teammates, Andres Perez and LeVar Scott over at Rev Racing. And hopefully she will be back and will be able to prove what she's capable of behind the wheel of an ARCA car. But you can tell clearly, you can just feel the passion in her voice as she's pulling the receipts out. And it was on her Instagram story, so it's been over 24 hours. It's no longer viewable. But from what she posted, she said that she had the brakes locked up, because I think Zilich even said this in his interview, that maybe she hadn't locked the brakes and that's why she was sliding down the track. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I wasn't great at physics, but I do remember hearing an object in motion tends to stay in motion. And when you spin out on a track that has over 30 degrees of banking in the corner, even if you have the brakes locked up, in a 3,400-pound stock car, I can imagine it's not beyond the reasonable possibility that car might continue to slide down that banking. So, again, it's just a really unfortunate situation. I don't know if there was any intent behind what Amber Balcaen was doing or how she was racing. It is worth noting that Balcaen went on to be involved in a third incident, which she blamed a flat tire on. That ultimately took her out of the race entirely, so she finished 25th, 1 spot ahead of Zilich, who himself was 1 spot ahead of Misuraca. But I hate it for Logan, and I hate it for Connor that it ruined his championship chances here. But I hope that this isn't the end for Logan Misuraca, because I feel like people made the ARCA brakes jokes and said that it was that she had no business being out there on the track, and I think nothing could be further from the truth. I think if there is any blame to put on any driver in this situation, maybe you could say Balcaen should have been racing that hard. Maybe you could say if anybody lived up to the ARCA brakes stereotype, maybe Zilich, a driver with a little bit more experience, could have seen that and reacted to it a little bit sooner. I'm certainly not blaming Zilich for the incident at all here. Obviously, it's easy to forget he's only 18 with how much success he's already had, but um, it's just I don't know. It's a very very touchy situation, very unfortunate situation, very sensitive situation for everybody involved. Emotions are running high, and obviously Logan's situation is much different. I mean, Connor's going Xfinity racing next year. He's going to be fine. I don't think missing out on an ARCA East title is ultimately going to ruin his career trajectory. Um, when Logan has this one race this year where she can go out and prove what she's capable of, and it ends like this, it's unfortunate, and I don't think it's necessarily fair, but you could look at this result not knowing the greater context of things, and it may become harder for her to get an opportunity here in the future. So we'll have to wait and see. I hope we see her back, but it's really unfortunate. And again, I'm glad we had some time to hear everybody's side of the story before we reacted to it on this show. I'm sure we'll revisit it in a few days' time as well, once again on Women in Motorsports. But really just a sad situation for everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Really sad that it all sort of just happened together like that, and no one really wanted the Zilich to be taken out of his championship contention. No one wanted the feud between two female drivers, or even if it even exists, and the fact that someone's, taking going on social media and talking about the being removed from the table, removing a seat from the table, fighting for a seat instead of having more at the table. That sort of thing is it's unfortunate that it had to come through a mixed bag like this.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, at the same time, I get it. I mean, emotions, have to be running high for her, and it's like we said, she's been everything that went into just doing this one race. I think a lot of times people don't understand the business aspect of the sport as well, and that the vast majority of the work that a lot of these drivers are doing, comes outside the race car, trying to find sponsorships, trying to find opportunities to come and do so much as just one race in this series. A series where the race purse certainly does not cover all the expenses. We saw, I think Landon Huffman was the one that was tweeting, this just in comparison to the car store, that there were, maybe two drivers that weren't paying more to be in this race than what the race purse was going to award them. And I assume he's referring to Sawalich and Zilich there. But again, Sawalich's, family's company is on his race car. And, I'm sure Zilich obviously has a lot of backing from Chevrolet as well. So it's unfortunate that this is the world we live in.